Well, jeepers! You're listening to Smash or Pass.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another interview on the JayBee Milly channel. I'm JayBee and joining us today is Sophie.
Hey.
We have Tore.
Hi.
And the special guest that we'll be interviewing today is Mr. Ernie Altbacker. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello.
So kind of like, obviously, you know, we absolutely love Scooby Doo and WWE, The Curse of the Speed Demon, but kind of getting a bit of your background, just doing some research on IMDb, I can see that the first, thing that's listed there is from 1996. But what kind of brought you into the world of writing?
Well, I did go to I almost had to take over the family business, which was a machine shop, and I wasn't too crazy about that. So in my spare time, I started writing screenplays because I loved movies that much, and I managed to get in to the American Film Institute for screenwriting, and so I learned a lot of stuff there. I didn't have any kind of Hollywood contacts, so I met people over there. And I just nerded out with a couple people. One in particular is Jim Krieg, who's done a lot of Scooby Doo, as you might know, and he was the guy that kind of got me into my first paid job with John Semper and Spider-Man, the mid-90s animated Spider-Man. And so from there, I have been writing cartoons at a steady pace, I guess.
I know we were chatting earlier about Stephen King, but were there any writers that you enjoyed prior to your career that you feel really inspired you?
Oh yeah. I'm so big into the genre. Sci-fi and fantasy stuff was my bread and butter. So I really like Heinlein, Bradbury, Edgar Allan Poe, the horror stuff, H.P. Lovecraft, and just a lot of sci-fi. I'm a mess now, I guess. I'm not thinking straight. It's a little earlier here. but I just did a lot of reading when I was growing up, of all the Conan stuff and Elric, and that stuff fired my imagination, I guess.
Well, you mentioned some awesome names there. You can tell how much they've inspired you, as the majority of your writing has been for animated feature shows, but you've also written for live action shows like Spooksville. Is there a difference in your method for writing when doing an animation versus live action?
If the animation is supposed to be kind of what I'll call realistic animation, then there's kind of no difference. Like if I'm writing the adaptation for Batman Hush, I'm writing it as if it was a big Hollywood movie or something. If it's a stretch and squash and a zany show like a Mucha Lucha, then I will write it bigger than some of the other ones that are more, more realistic, if you will.
See, that's so interesting because you've mentioned a lot of things that are almost like they're great chapters in like pre-existing franchises. So one of the main things that I saw on IMDb that kind of got me really pumped up was knowing that you wrote on, Ben 10 Alien Force and Ultimate Alien. So from your perspective, what is there kind of a different pressure almost when it comes to writing something that has like a pre-existing fandom or continuation?
Well, it's always fun to jump into somebody else's playground, I would say. So Ben 10 obviously was a very established show, and again, my friend Jim, he was friends with Dwayne McDuffie, and he got me in on those, so I got to co-write a couple of them, but they were very fun episodes. I mean, and then there's the bigger properties, you know, you come in on Spider-Man. I mean, that's just a dream come true because Spider-Man was one of my favorites. When I was a kid, I would watch the Ralph Bakshi Spider-Man, not when it was coming out. It was in reruns, not quite that old. But and then to actually write on it, you know, or you read Batman comic books and then you actually get to write dialogue for Batman. That stuff is fantastic, you know. You'd like to do something a little bit different, but you also have to be cognizant of that there's a whole history here and the character does act in a certain way, right? You can't just go, well, we've never seen a Batman who he's going to go do stand-up. So in mine, he's going to be a struggling comedian. You can't change the character like that much, but you can try and do some different and cool things or cool stories with that.
It sounds so surreal, especially from like franchises and characters where it's lasted the test of time to a point where you can enjoy something, you know, in childhood watching something and then get a chance to write for it later in life. It must just be completely surreal. And just talking about like the Scooby movie that you wrote, you know, The Curse of the Speed Demon, was that something that you had nostalgia for? You know, how familiar were you with Scooby before writing that movie?
Oh, I'm a huge fan of original Scooby, the original 18 episodes from I think 1968. I watched all of them at least a dozen times a piece, right? So yeah, every animation writer wants to write a Scooby because you definitely were a fan of it when you were a kid. So the
how
cool
did
thing, sorry. The cool thing about this was I actually got to do a movie for it, not just an episode on a show. And so it was really fun, actually, in that regard.
Yeah. So speaking of the movie, how did you start working on it? Like, how did all of that come about?
Well, okay. I think there was somebody else, a friend of mine was on it, and he had written the story. His name is Matt Wayne, and he also has done a lot of animation writing, fine writer. And then he had to go away to story edit something. So they were looking for someone. I was working for Alan Burnett on a show that was it was not out yet, called Justice League Action. And I had written an episode that he liked about the Red Lanterns. And this happened where they needed a writer. And he was like, would you like to write the Scooby script off of this outline? And I was like, heck yeah, I would. So that's kind of how it happened. A little right place, right time. I was working with a person who was doing a show that I was on, but he was also producing this thing, and they knew that they needed a writer, and I had handed in a good script that week, so I was on his mind. So that's sometimes how these things happen. I'm sure there were many writers out there that had written many more Scoobies and run Scooby shows, but you're just in front of the person at the right time when they get the call. You know, maybe I was even in the room and they go, oh crap, I've got this. You know, you go, I would do that. Yeah. You know, I don't think it was like that. I actually did get a call in that case, but it's happened that way too.
That was really cool. So either through kind of your fandom of Scooby Doo, or just writing the movie, was there a member of the Scooby gang that you found was the best to write for?
I mean, you know, they're all fantastic. You couldn't pick one. I mean, of course you want to write some Scooby dialogue, and Shaggy. I think Shaggy's probably he's too easily everybody's favorite, but the story and the mystery part that you have to construct with, say, Velma and Fred and Daphne is also fun, in addition to like the romps which is, you know, what they call when they run through the doors and stuff. It's all just really fun. And then the actors, they've done it so much before that they're going to help out with any time that you have a line that might not ring exactly true.
Well, we know how familiar you are with the Scooby franchise, which is really fun. But with the movie being a crossover with WWE, did you have any knowledge of the WWE before writing the movie?
I did actually, but my knowledge was very dated. My parents, for some reason, I had a couple uncles that loved in the 70s it was pre-WWE, but it was wrestling. It was some of these same characters. And like one of the guys that was in the movie, Dusty Rhodes. I remember him specifically wrestling in the mid 70s, and my uncles were watching and they're like, this guy's good. So I hadn't been a kind of up to speed on what was occurring in the WWE, but luckily the producer of that, Brandon Vietti, is a WWE nut, and he's like, well, you got to start watching Friday night WWE Nitro or whatever it's called, and then like here are clips of all of the wrestlers that are going to be in the movie. And so that's how I was kind of introduced to all of the new wrestlers, your The Miz and Paige and Kofi Kingston and Rusev, all of those guys. So I didn't know them, but it was quite easy to kind of learn. So it was fun too.
Oh yeah, of course. Now it's kind of interesting. Like Scooby is almost notorious for crossovers at this point, you know, going back towards like the show in the 70s, the new Scooby Doo movie. But in the case of the Curse of the Speed Demon, that was the second kind of trip for Scooby Doo direct-to-video movies into WWE. So to any extent, was your movie meant to follow on from the first WWE crossover at all?
Well, I didn't write the first one, so I'm not privy to the inner workings of that. It wasn't like a direct. I know I did watch the first one. It wasn't a direct thing, and they did consciously use different people in the leading roles to get more people in. But I think it just did whenever you see a sequel like this, that means the first one did pretty well. And so then they want to do a second one. I do know that for the second one, which was very odd, I was like, okay, this is gonna be great. Like, let's do some wrestling. They're like, no, we don't want it to be wrestling. We don't want the second one to be wrestling. I'm like, you don't want the Scooby Doo WWE crossover to have wrestling in it. And I go, no, we just don't want it to be a main angle is not just going to be a wrestling thing. So we had to think up they had thought up this racing angle. And I was like, wow, this is really like weird that I'm doing a wrestling movie, but it's not exactly wrestling. Although they used all of their signature moves.
Yeah, definitely interesting with it being that kind of racing aspect, and you know, it was interesting and very action-packed as well. But from like a kind of writing standpoint for you, are there any like scenes that you wrote or any sequences that you wrote that like stick out to you as being, you know, that was really fun to write or being particularly memorable?
I mean, I think the whole end build where they, you know, they've wrecked their car and then they have to use the mystery machine to do the final racing. I mean, you knew it was coming, but it was fun anyway. I like the interplay between the wrestlers and the gang. That for me, that's the really fun part. I mean, can't say enough about the Miz. He was just willing to go for it all the time. If you were like, scream like a girl, sorry, it's probably not a very great thing to say, but scream in the highest pitched voice that you've ever done before, and then go, oh, okay, I'm cool. He would do it. Whereas some of the other wrestlers are like, oh, that's gonna make me sound like I was scared. He doesn't care. And Sheamus was fun too. Paige also, I remember, was willing to do anything to make it funnier. And so that was really fun stuff to watch.
Do you recall how long it took you to actually write the movie?
Well, I think we had to go pretty fast on this because while the outline was handed in, then all of a sudden they got some notes from the WWE, which really we had to rework the outline very quickly and then write it fast. So I think I did a draft or two within a month that settled everything down, and they went into production pretty fast. I don't think this one took me more than 6 weeks from soup to nuts, but I already had like most of the outline was done.
Wow, that's a lot quicker than I thought it would be.
Well, and the other thing is, I would say a lot. I'm sorry, I have allergies, so my nose is stuffed up. I don't know if you can hear it over the thing, but the other thing is, a lot of it isn't writing time because Warner Brothers and the people working at Warner Brothers are juggling a bunch of projects. So I could put in a draft and then not get notes for 3 weeks. You're just waiting, right? Because they're dealing with other stuff. So that also adds into the time. But yeah, this one went pretty fast because they just had to. They only had the WWE people could only do the records in this one certain week before they were going to do, I think, a WrestleMania in Los Angeles. So some of them came in, others we got in through like a feed.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Once the movie came out, did you get to watch it? And if so, what did you think?
I mean, sure, I watch everything that comes out, and they usually give you a copy too if you write it. I loved it. It was really great. The director, animation director Tim DeVar, he's gone on to do a lot of other things. Some not so G friendly Scooby that I've written, some horror superhero stuff, but he did a great job with Brandon and all of the animators. It was really good, and I think some people like it. I don't know. I don't know in the Scooby community how high it's regarded, I guess. So I hope some people liked it.
Well, you mentioned how good, the WWE world and the Scooby world matched. And I think out of all the other crossover Scooby movies, WWE was probably one of the better ones. Well, there's always been speculation and talk if there was ever to be another WWE crossover with Scooby Doo. But if you were to return to the world of Scooby Doo, would you want it to be another WWE movie or a standalone movie?
I'd probably like to do something else, like one of the horror ones, a standalone horror movie that they make from time to time would be really fun. I pitched a couple that didn't go past the pitching stage. One was in the New Orleans Bayou, and I wanted to get into that whole voodoo thing, but it didn't catch. I still have the idea though, and I'm like, ooh, I think this would be really good. So
wow, those are some really awesome ideas. I mean, talking about the future, Do you have any current or upcoming projects that you can share with us, please?
No, I mean, like, well, no, God. I just ended up, you know what? I can't. There's a couple Warner Brothers superhero things that are kicking around. I'm doing some development. I did a live action project in Europe about two bubbling private eyes, and hopefully that'll be out toward the end of the year or the first quarter of next. And I'm just yeah, there's one I'm doing though, and it's kind of super secretly. Just kill me. but it's not a Scooby, so it's not as big news to your fans.
I mean, there's definitely a lot to look forward to, and hopefully, you know, fingers crossed we can see that New Orleans-based Scooby movie at some point, because it's always interesting when it gets a bit scary, when it gets a bit creepier, but also when it visits new locations as well. Like, you know, fingers crossed we do get to see that one day. That is absolutely incredible. And in terms of like where people can keep up with all your projects and everything that you've got going on, is there like an ideal place for people to keep up with your work?
Yeah. Usually any news I have comes down on Twitter or my Facebook. So it's at Ernie Altbacker or EJ Altbacker, and Ernie Altbacker on Facebook. I'm easily findable. If people, you know, have questions or something, I usually get to them. Probably not the next day or something, but you know, I'll find them. And yes, I guess Twitter's the easiest. I also have an Instagram now under the same name. No crazy names. It's all under Ernie Altbacker. All three of those.
Well, that's brilliant. I'll be sure to include that in the description down below. So if anyone's interested in going there, they can follow those links down below as well. And also all of the links for Sophie and Tori as well as our link tree. So yeah, that's the kind of all the questions we had today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been like an absolute honor to have you here today.
Oh, well, you know, this was really fun. Sorry about the hay fever and the possible voice that's coming through. But boy, you know, you guys must be getting down to the dregs. I've only written this one thing. There are other people that have written zillions of Scoobies, you know, but maybe you've already interviewed them all, right? Like Jeremy Adams or Jim Krieg.
Oh yeah, well, Jeremy Adams quite recently, and that was a very interesting conversation as well. I think everything with Scooby is just an amazing chapter in a massive book, and the kind of, you know, the honor that I want to do here is to read every chapter possible, and so it's just amazing and such an honor to consume it all. So thank you so much. It is incredible. And as well, thank you so much to everyone for watching this today. I really do hope that you enjoyed it. If you want to see more, then please like, comment and subscribe, and we will see you next time.